Imagine being home alone one night watching TV when you suddenly hear someone trying to break into your house, but you can't find your phone to call the police. Well, that's the terrifying setting for the first story that we're going to tell to you today. But before we get into that,
hello and welcome to Back-to-Back Horror Stories, where we tell you a few different strange and/or creepy stories back to back.
If you end up enjoying this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's get started.
One night when Julie was 17, she experienced one of the scariest and most traumatic events of her entire life, the details of which I'm going to elaborate on right now. So during this night, her parents were out of town and she found herself home alone. Now for starters, this was already a place that she wasn't very comfortable in yet because her and her parents had just recently moved in and they were still in the process of getting fully acclimated to living there. And on top of that, she describes in her story a few key details that made it even more uncomfortable. And that's A, that there was construction going on next door and another house being built, and B, her parents unfortunately had the unnerving habit of leaving the garage door, which connected the house to the garage, unlocked. So if anyone tried to break in, it really wouldn't be that difficult, as Julie would soon find out firsthand. And that's because while she was home alone watching TV, she suddenly saw from the corner of her eye that same garage door start to wiggle around a little bit. Now at first she thought it may have been her eyes just playing tricks on her or something, but out of caution she put her TV on mute and paid closer attention to the doorknob. And this time she definitely saw it moving around. So as you can expect, she started freaking out, frantically tried looking for a phone, and became increasingly more and more paranoid. Now Julia's first instinct was to try looking for her house phone, but when she couldn't find that, she switched over to trying to locate her cell phone. Of course, then she remembered that she had left her charger in her parents' car, so she once again reverted to looking for her house phone. Meanwhile, as she continued to search for whatever type of phone she could find, the person outside was now loudly banging on the windows in her living room. And she suddenly came to the realization that they were watching her every move, because unfortunately before her mother left the house, she hadn't gotten around to putting any drapes or blinds up yet. I mean, them moving in was very recent. So as it stood now, all the windows in the home were completely uncovered. So still in a panic, Julia ran up the stairs as fast as possible and started planning her exit strategy. I mean, she's thinking to herself, am I going to have to jump out the window? Am I going to have to hide? I mean, how am I going to escape this sort of thing? Around the time she approaches the top of the steps and starts to enter the upstairs hallway, the intimidation tactics by the intruder have reached their boldest attempt yet. Instead of pounding on any of the side doors or the windows, this person is now using some type of heavy plastic or metal object like a gun or something to bang on the front door. At this point, Julia got mad at herself for always being on the phone and always leaving it off the hook, and almost considered hitting the button at the base of the receiver that tracks it down by making a loud sound, but she figured that would anger the intruder even more and he might end up breaking the window and doing who knows what. So while in the upstairs hallway, she suddenly remembers that she left her phone in her parents' bedroom, so that then becomes her new destination. But as she's passing some of the other rooms in the hallway that come before her parents, she catches a sharp glimpse from the corner of her eye, some movement outside of one of the windows inside a room. And what she witnesses is probably her most disturbing realization yet. So not only is there a single intruder, but there are multiple intruders, and the two of them are pacing back and forth outside of the house, and she can see this. Now when Julia finally enters her parents' bedroom, she starts looking not only for the house phone, but for her dad's gun in case she has to protect herself. Now she doesn't find the gun, but she does find the phone, and immediately she starts dialing 911, and as she's waiting for them to pick up, she suddenly hears one of the intruders downstairs break a window. And after a short period of intense anticipation, finally hears the operator pick up, and she explains to them her situation. Of course, while she's now hiding in the closet of her parents' bedroom, there's an eerie silence going on downstairs, and she feels like she's waiting for what seems like an eternity. Ultimately, though, she hears sirens outside and the cops show up, but they're never able to find the perpetrators. So in the end, Julia ended up surviving this terrifying burglary. But for about a month afterwards, she had horrifying night terrors and will forever have to deal with the trauma of the experience. But at least she can say that she's alive.
This story's from Reddit user Saint Entropy. I'm not sure about what Saint Entropy's name is, so we're just going to call them Sam. Well, Sam has a grandma, and in her living room stood a lamp that was pretty much never turned off. She changed the light bulb every week very meticulously. So Sam would ask her every now and again about the lamp, but his grandma would just smile and quickly change the subject. Sam would eventually learn the truth about the lamp when he turned 13 years old and decided to turn it off. He claimed he just wanted to see what would happen, but this was a huge mistake. His grandma came in holding a plate of cookies, and when she saw the light was off, she dropped the plate and the cookies went everywhere, and she started yelling and screaming. She ran over to turn the light back on and was praying while doing it. She started crying and looked over very angrily at Sam and with no hesitation, slapped him. At this point in Sam's life, his grandma has never even raised her voice at him, let alone hit him. She then started to beg for his forgiveness and gave him a hug and started to talk about the story behind the lamp. The lamp was something called a ghost light. A ghost light is a single bulb left burning whenever a room is dark. It's supposed to chase away evil spirits. When Sam's grandma and grandpa first arrived to America, for some reason spirits that were dead haunted his grandma. So they bought a house and Sam's grandpa lit the first ghost light and said as long as this beacon burns through darkness, his grandma will never see another spirit. This spooked Sam out, and so he slowly started distancing himself from his grandma, and before he knew it, it had been 10 years since he's seen her and he would get some really bad news. His grandma passed away, and because he was her only living relative, he inherited the house. When Sam first walked through the front door, everything looked exactly as he remembered it from when he was a kid. He started walking around the house and nostalgia was kicking in, and then he got to the living room and saw it, the ghost lamp, and it immediately sent shivers down his spine. He froze in his tracks, his smile turned upside down, and he started to think about the day that his grandma slapped him. The next day, Sam told his mother about the ghost light, but she said, "Don't worry, it's just superstition." For some reason, Sam felt differently about it though, but he decided to turn the ghost light off anyway because he didn't want to seem crazy. Later in the night, something woke him up. He was laying in bed just listening to the darkness when he started hearing scratching sounds coming from the living room. Sam thought that these were rats, and that was the last thing that he wanted to deal with, so he aggravatingly got out of bed and stormed into the hallway. It was pitch black outside, but the moon was shining bright, and so it dimly lit the house. As Sam was walking through the halls, he got to the living room and nothing could prepare him for what he was about to see. An elderly woman was crouched over in the corner with her back turned towards Sam. She was scratching at the floors and stopped every few minutes to shake her head vigorously. Sam felt incredibly uneasy about this and was scared, but at the same time was confused about how this elderly woman got inside of his house. He finally got some courage to approach her, and so he put his hand on her shoulder and he asked her where she lived and who her caretaker was, and that's when she turned around. Her eyes were pitch black, like bottomless pits with nothing reflecting off of them. Her jaw hung low and her mouth was completely wide open, and you could see a dark tunnel that just spiraled down into her throat. Sam was terrified, but then he realized who it was. He recognized the familiar face structure and the curls in her wispy hair. It was his grandma, and then all of a sudden she let out a huge scream that sounded out of this world. Sam screamed and started stumbling backwards away from the corner that his grandma was in. He saw the ghost light that he turned off earlier that day, and so he quickly turned it on and he looked around and she was gone. After this, Sam never turned the ghost light off again, and he began vigorously changing the bulb every week, just like his grandma had. A few years would pass and Sam would settle down and find a wife, and luckily for him, she was okay with him being obsessed with this lamp. So Sam and his wife would have children, and their children would have children. Now Sam has a grandson who's recently been asking about the ghost light and why it's always on. Sam just smiles at him and quickly changes the subject. He just can't bring himself to tell him the truth. He dwells on what happened with his grandma and doesn't want his grandson to suffer a similar fate by distancing himself from Sam. But Sam knows that he's not going to be around forever, and eventually, just like how he was curious about the ghost light, his grandson will be too, and he'll turn it off as well. Sam's just a little worried that he might then see him, distorted and broken, scratching at the floor in the corner.
Alright guys, that's gonna do it for us today.
If you like this video and want to see more of our content, our TikTok and our Instagram account is in the bio.
Also, if you have any idea for content you'd like us to make in the future, please let us know in the comments below, and it could end up being in a future video. Thank you for watching.